Welcome. I am DEJI360. President Bola Tinubu has ordered the Nigerian army to bring the perpetrators of the tragic and barbaric killing of 16 soldiers during a peacekeeping mission in Okwama community in Nigeria's southern Delta state to justice. The soldiers, comprising a commanding officer, 2 majors, 1 captain, and other officers, were deployed to control clashes between the Okwama and Okoloba communities, stemming from disputes over land and fishing rights in the oil-rich region. However, they were ambushed and killed by youths from Okwama community, as confirmed by the army. Now, some of the bodies of the soldiers were decapitated. Granting full authority now to the Defense Headquarters and Chief of Defense Staff, Tinubu urged decisive action to ensure justice for the fallen soldiers and the civilian victims. Meanwhile, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, has also been speaking on the incident, providing deeper insights into what actually happened. Take a listen.
On the issue of the recent attacks on our troops, like the Lieutenant Colonel, like I can say, I was the theater commander in the Northeast. We worked together. He's a gallant officer, and so of the soldiers. He was one of the best we had. He did so well in the Northeast. We brought him to the North Central. He did well. He went to the Northwest. He did extremely well. And then went to the South. Now, what happened? Basically, it was a community clash that was happening, and those are his own area of responsibilities. And that's why he responded when initially his soldiers, his officer, and some soldiers were arrested, were apprehended by the communities. We know that because of these issues of bunkering, we have a lot of pirates, militants that are still operating within the general area. And they have a lot of funding because of the illegal activities they carry out. So they equally have a lot of arms with them. These are people they know, and that's why when he had it, he felt, these are my community, these are people I know. And he went to say, look, this what you are doing is not right. Whatever it is within the community, we can do it, invite the state government, let them come and handle it. It's a state government issue and all these things. And the community said, okay. And as they turned to go, they were rounded up, killed. Not only killed, they were dismembered. Head cut off, stomach open, parts missing. And I don't know what kind of, for a human being to go to that extent to do for people that came on a peaceful means, then there's something that goes beyond that. I know him, the CEO himself, Lieutenant Colonel Ali, of recent, because we have emphasized we want the oil production of Nigeria to increase so that we'll be able to have enough foreign exchange and then things can really go down, because we all know the challenges we're going. And so he insisted that all illegal activities within the general area must stop. So he directed all his troops, and they were stopping all this illegal bunkering, stopping all these things, and then these are the people benefiting from it. And so when this issue came, I think it came as an opportunity for them to also do away with him. And that's exactly what happened. We know who did it. We are following up on him, and it's just a matter of time. We're sure we're going to get him, because they took away again arms. We must get those arms back. We must get those guys so that they can be prosecuted accordingly. And that's why we have called to the citizens. We know there are communities that are keeping some of the arms for them, hiding them, sponsoring them, doing all these things. That please, this is a Nigerian issue. These guys were killed in cold blood and butchered. So all those ones that have been supporting them one way or the other, they should, because if we arrest and do an investigation, we find them, they too will be culpable. It is important. Other aspects, now we're happy that the oil production has also increased gradually, and we're continuing to push that, because our target is 2 million barrels before the end of this year, and then go beyond that. And I think if we're able to achieve that, the economy will pick up, and the citizens will be very happy for it.
That's General Christopher Musa, the Chief of Defense Staff. Now, the military says some arrests have actually been made, but a major manhunt is still on for the chief mastermind of the deadly attack, who is said to be a known militant in the Niger Delta region. Of course, his name has not been officially provided. But joining me now to discuss this further is legal expert Libros Oshoma, who joins us here in the studio. Also joining us is Nelson Ekujimi, who is the Executive Director at the Center for Social and Economic Rights. He joins us in the studio as well. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
And thanks a lot for your time. And let me start with you, Libros. Give me your take on this. I mean, for me, this is just heart-wrenching. The way those soldiers were killed. We don't have enough military personnel in this country. and then we're killing our personnel like this in this barbaric, and this is pure savagery.
Yeah, having grown up in the barracks, I can estimate what it takes to train a soldier to the rank of a lieutenant, not to talk of even a lieutenant colonel. From lieutenant colonel, you get to redneck, and so for a soldier who is in a theater of war, about last week or so, I was with a general, and then he said he was in Maiduguri, he was in the thick of forest in the Maiduguri, and then he was there for 3 months, that's 90 days, only for him to come out and he heard there was SARS, and that he was bitter, he was angry that Nigerians don't understand what they go through in the bush, you know, sacrificing their today for our tomorrow. And then some persons will rise up and, you know, begin to protest and all of that. So we try to have, you know, a conversation, civilian military conversation, and, you know, try to strike a balance. So it is the same thing here when you hear that soldiers are dying in the hands of people who they are supposed to be protecting. And it is heart-wrenching. Not only that they are killed, their body dismembered. And you know, and then the perpetrators are walking free.
And these soldiers have families.
And they not just have families, they have relatives. They have people who are depending on them, who are waiting for them. You know what it means when you travel and then you're coming back and your children run to you, daddy, dede, yo. And they don't talk of a man who is in a war front.
And for those soldiers,
and then the parents,
family
Easter is approaching. So the family members are probably hoping, okay, Salah daddy will come home, you know, for Easter or for Salah, only for you to tune on your TV and you see that daddy's body has been dismembered, you know, by people who he is protecting. Nothing demoralizes anybody like such news. And sometimes I had cause to talk about, do advocacy, saluting our gallant officers. Not just recently, we also did the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, where, you know, soldiers are celebrated. You know, but there is a crisis in the Niger Delta that if care is not taken, if soldiers can be killed like chicken, then you can imagine what happens to the ordinary everyday man. You know, this militancy in the Niger Delta started like a child's play. And then we said, oh, the politicians armed these boys for political gains, and now today they've grown wings. Some of these people, some of these boys have become, you only hear of Boko Haram. They are worse, or bandits. Some of these boys are holding communities hostage. Some of them are being used by politicians to the extent that for you to do anything in these communities, you must go to take permission from them. You pay royalty.
In the Niger Delta.
In the Niger Delta. If you remember, in 2015, election could not hold in some places because some militants were holding certain communities hostage. 2019, the same thing. DEJI, you and I had been in this studio discussing the menace of militancy and some people who had been convicted aspiring to occupy political office.
And they were so bold about it.
And they were very audacious and bold about it. And today, if something drastic is not done, tomorrow a government will come and say, we'll give blanket amnesty, and then criminals, killers, kidnappers would come and say they have laid down 1 or 2 guns, and then tomorrow they'll be compensated. The only problem I have is the collateral damages that is happening.
We're going to talk about that. Just hold on. Let me get Nelson to come in. Nelson, this is just indescribable. It's really indescribable, and it's unimaginable that our soldiers would, you know, suffer this kind of fate.
Well, you have put it succinctly in describing it as savagery. I think this is the peak of barbarism. And for me, as a Nigerian, you know, I didn't feel the weight of the, you know, the death until I heard the Chief of Defense Staff speak on it. And, you know, for me, nothing can rationalize this act of, you know, inhumanity, because these are soldiers who were deployed, you know, to maintain law and order in that environment. And to see that the community itself, from the reports we are getting, it's very clear that the community was culpable in the gruesome murder of these soldiers. And, you know, my condolences to the President and the Commander-in-Chief, as well as the members of the armed forces and the families of these soldiers. I believe strongly, and I want to also join Mr. President in charging the security agencies to ensure that these perpetrators are brought to book. Because if we don't do it, we can be rest assured that one day these gangsters, these terrorists, these killers who were so brazen, you know, when we were growing up, even the mere sight of a military man alone frightens you. For people to have the courage to have done this, no, it's unacceptable. And
I'll tell you the difference between what it was like when you were growing up and now. The difference is just that when you were growing up, you don't have the proliferation of, you know, arms the way we have it now, especially these small arms and light weapons.
Absolutely.
It's horrible now. Almost everyone has access to guns, and some of these bad people, when they have access to guns and then they are high on drugs, I mean, you know how terrible the situation of drugs is in this country. Absolutely. And in some of these areas. I mean, they just can't do anything. But Libros, let me come back to you. You were talking about, you were just about to talk about collateral damage, and it's one thing that we just can't run away from. We saw a similar thing back in, I wouldn't know how many, several years back. I mean, the OD, Zakibian, I mean, those episodes are clear, they all come to mind. Yeah. How, you know, military personnel and police officers were killed in a similar manner, and then the military went in there. We know the results of OD and Zakibian. And from when things like this happen, obviously there will be collateral damage. The people will suffer, the community will suffer.
That was why the Supreme Court in the, you know, this case awarded damages to the community. Because the then President Goodluck Jonathan was governor, I think deputy governor of Bayelsa, and he said when they visited the place and when they saw the damage that happened, that was about 7 soldiers or so, and 11 soldiers, and Zakibian was about 7 soldiers. And the question is, despite all of this, it has not stopped. So what needs to be done to ensure that this idea of soldiers dying in the hands of people they are meant to protect will be a thing of the past, will be completely eradicated? Because at the end of the day, when it happens, the tendency to invade the community and there will be collateral damages, and people would be, innocent persons would be in the line of fire, would certainly be there. So there are allegations now. Some persons are saying 80 persons have died in some of these communities. Some are saying 10, some are saying 50, and that soldiers have cordoned off these places. They are not allowing access, you know. That's where we need to also ensure that this idea of deploying our military in every activities, there's need for us to train our policemen also. The DSS, let me land. The DSS also has a role to play in all of this. What we find out now in the Niger Delta, it's like you have a lot of ungoverned territories. And because you have a lot of ungoverned territories, some persons who are non-state actors are taking up the responsibility.
It's a problem everywhere.
Yes, of states actors. A situation where despite the fact that you have the Nigerian Navy, the government had firm out protection of pipelines to a private organization. And these private organizations also are alleged to have gunboats, prisons, and they make arrests. Some of these boys, tomorrow, because of one thing or the other, or because of nefarious activities, who might be sacked from these organizations, will resort to militancy. This was how some persons who were armed by politicians resorted to militancy. I think it is high time the government reappraise the role of military intervention in some of these places and ensure that if we're using military to intervene, let there be a thorough collaboration and not firming out the government job to private individuals, especially when it has to do with security. And that's why you have all sorts of generals
but let's face it,
that have never fought wars.
I can understand when you talk about farming out contract, but let's face it, if it's working, and we can see that to some extent is working, I'm talking about this issue of private security firms. I mean, let's even be direct. Tantita Security, for instance, given pipeline surveillance contract. This is what this is what even some of the leaders in the Niger Delta had been advocating for a very long time. So the question is, when you do not have enough in terms of capacity and in terms of equipment to police, and then you ask the communities now to help police the infrastructure. What's wrong with that?
DEJI, you see, the challenge here is there have been accusation from, since we're mentioning names now, from Tantita, that the military, the navy, and police had compromised wait, in the protection of pipelines, and that there was specifically, quoting Tompolo, that anywhere there is pipeline vandalization, just check about 1 or 2 meters from there, you have police or army or navy checkpoints.
Yeah.
So what that means is that there is a failure. There is a collapse.
Anyway, let's just leave that aside, because I really don't want us to
I don't want to go into all of that.
Exactly.
Why I'm bringing in this is because you have to look at both the chicken and the eggs, not which one comes first. How do we ensure there is a synergy and collaboration? And too quickly, now there are accusations and counter accusations. Some persons in APC are pointing accusing fingers at the PDP-led government in Bayelsa.
But just hold on. If some politicians are saying this, let's not help to.
Let's not help them. I don't want to amplify them. Let's not help them. Quickly, I don't want to amplify it, but we also need to say it that when you begin to play politics with the lives of people,
because
people have died. Let politicians not play politics with the lives of people. And what I expect now is a collaboration from both the politicians, the community leaders, even the youth leaders, and then the security forces. Let there be a holistic collaboration to ensure that the perpetrators are fished out, and then we can now sit down in a round table to say, how do we fashion a way forward? But a situation where some persons will play politics with the issue and then hide, and then others will try, because of the relationship that they have with, some of these persons, will now try to create, a curtain for perpetrators. The problem will never abate.
Well, the truth is, politicians would always want to take advantage of situations as this and try to play politics with it. I mean, we've seen that. We can see what is going on in Bayelsa, where the APC governorship candidate and the incumbent governor have been trading blames over this incident. But we should not help them. Hold on.
Quickly,
we should not help them to.
So that I don't take
hold on. We should not help them to even escalate that at all. But let me come to you, Nelson. You look at what happened at Okwama community, and the question you want to ask is, was there nothing the community and the leadership of that community could have done to prevent this from happening?
Well, like I stated earlier on, looking at this incident, you cannot run away from the fact that there was communal conspiracy, because you expect that, in fact, if any incident is going to happen of that magnitude in a community, you expect that the leadership or the traditional authority in that community would have been abreast, and they would have taken actions, to abort it. But because, like Libros rightly said, it's like that community, that region is a region where there's total breakdown of law and order. And that's the region you go to, and you see one riffraff, and they will tell you that is General X. And you are like, if you are a newcomer, you are like, this one General. How did he become? Then your memory will just come back and you recognize that, oh, he's a militant general. And you need to see how dirty, haggard looking.
Because the reason I asked that question is this. Look, the soldiers were shot. 16 or 17 of them shot. Now, after shooting them dead,
they were dismembered.
Yeah. Imagine what it would take to get them dismembered. Heads chopped off, bowels torn open, so many parts, and then not just that, they took that away and dumped the bodies in the river. So the question I keep asking is, was there nothing the leadership of that community could have done?
They were culpable in this act, in this savagery, because even if people were going to commit such acts, knowing the implication in a community like that, the leaders would have come out to say, no, gentlemen, you can't do this on our territory. You can go elsewhere to practice your barbarism, but not here. But for them to have had that courage, it means there was conspiracy in and out. So that is why I will strongly hold up to the view that every person involved in that crisis were neck deep in the plots to kill and to dismember the security operatives. So there's no two ways about it.
So sorry,
Libros, let me, this crisis between the two communities, I mean, one Urhobo community, the other one Ijaw community, has been on for a very long time.
Yes.
For a very long time.
Yes.
So the question is, how couldn't the state government too have resolved this? Because if the state government had taken this issue very seriously, we probably would not have gotten to this stage.
DEJI, before I answer your question, you said we shouldn't help the politicians to fan the...
Let's not help them.
No.
Yes.
DEJI, there is no way we can discuss this without bringing in the politicians. So please permit me, just hear me out a little bit. You see, the militancy activities in the Niger Delta was given birth to by politicians.
That is true.
Until date, the politicians benefit immensely from militancy activities in the Niger Delta.
We've gotten to a situation where some of them can't even control the militants.
Yes, that's another true. In every election, as far back as 2015, you covered election in Bayelsa.
Sure.
The election between Siva and Dixon, there are some places that election could not hold because of militant activities. There were allegations that, even in the last election, there were allegations that in Membe Basabri, that boys loyal to Siva could not allow election to take place in those places. So these are militants. They are not just the everyday boys. Before the election, you remember the Nembe crisis, where the women came out naked protesting that some militants, some boys are depriving them of peace. These are the kind of boys that if you are allowed to run riot, these are loyal thugs or militants, loyal to politicians. If you allow them to run riots, they will cause this kind of mayhem. And yet let me take it down to this position.
Time, yes.
Let me take it down to, do you know why the crisis, the governor has not been able, even the previous governor has not been able? Because some of these persons are alleged to be loyal to certain politicians. See, forever there's been crisis between Alaja community and is it Ogbijona or which community in Delta State? Till date, that crisis had been going on.
And this is the result. This is the result when you allow a crisis to fester.
And so when you allow such crisis to fester consistently, and then you have non-state actors, some persons also, if we have to go with some of the gist we hear in town, that some persons in these areas, militants, dress in military uniform to even invade communities. So when you
that may not be untrue, because what we are also hearing from this incident is that this militant, the mastermind, was actually contracted to come in from another state.
Exactly. So when you have people who address themselves as generals, non-state actors addressing themselves as generals, known to state actors, supported and covered by state actors, this is what you're going to find. A situation where non-state actors carry arms the way they like and they collect taxes. And I think this is, in as far as people have died, and I feel very bad. I feel this is one of those times you just wish you could just leave Nigeria and stop hearing these bad stories. But unfortunately, bad stories come from every angle. It happens in every country. But I think with this, it is high time the government put its foot down and look at both the military, both the civilians, both the elders, both the state government, and say, look, how do we sit down, have a holistic, you know, heart-to-heart talk, and a commission of inquiry to actually look at the culpability of everybody involved. DEJI, I know people who have served in the Niger Delta, and once they leave the military, they become multi-billionaire. I know some people, civilians also, boys like my learned friend Nessie had said, who couldn't write as big as this studio, but are multi-millionaire because they are involved in military activities. And then people who are hard-working, can barely, their salary can barely take them home. What we do is we're compensating criminality. And when you compensate criminality, you, at the end of the day, what you're telling those who have the capacity for criminality is that criminality pays. And that's why you see people going into this every day. Nelson, those days it was Boylof, Asari Dokubo, and Tomateke. But today, you have a lot of other people. And
these names you mentioned, they're still very much around. Nelson, I still want us to talk about, you know, the failure of the state government. Look, that area is under Ugeli. I think it's Ugeli. Is Ugeli a local government? Yes, not local government. So you have a local government chairman who could not deal with this land dispute that has been there for a very long time. And of course, as we're learning, the land dispute is also tied to oil as well. Could not deal with it for a very long time. They said, from what we have gathered, this has been going on now for several years. We've had how many state governors in that state now? They couldn't deal with it. And you have the current state governor too. In fact, not until this thing happened, that's when the governor visited that area. Now, isn't this a complete failure? A complete failure on the part of the state government and the local government, especially the state government. Why didn't they do something about this?
Well,
and now we see the state governor calling traditional rulers from that area and everywhere and issuing them stern warnings.
Well, maybe he has just woken up from his, deep slumber. But be that as it may, it's very obvious that, governance has failed in that region, especially within that state. Because you want to ask, though the governor sits as the chief executive officer of the state, he holds state security council meeting. You want to ask, what do they discuss there? What are the information that comes to that meeting? And how could they not
have gotten intelligence? The state government could not have gotten intelligence.
And that is a state where you have the office of the DSS in every local government. You have police stations there. Then you expect the state, because the state is also among the southern states that were advocating for state security architecture. You want to ask, is this how we will run the state police or state security apparatus when we eventually bet it, where state governments, where local governments will allow non-state actors to hold the community to ransom and be bold enough to, to commit this type of heinous crime? Because, like, for me, this is a declaration of war against the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Because if you kill a Nigerian soldier, that soldier represents the state called Federal Republic of Nigeria. So you want to ask, where is the local government administration in that state? Where is the state government?
What can they do?
No, it means they are not alive to their responsibility.
They still could have done something. They still could have done something in terms of dispute resolution.
DEJI, this is beyond dispute resolution. In my community, for example, Anegbete and Ifeku, we had a communal crisis that lingered for years. I'm telling you this, not oil-rich river, just a portion of the river. People died from my community. They went to war. Aguleri and Umuleri went to war. Let me drive this home. Went to war. And at the end of the day, recently I listened to
You see why I'm happy you're mentioning these cases. Aguleri and Umuleri, it's well known.
Yes.
And we followed that. And you could also see the failure of local authorities in all of that. So why didn't we learn from that?
Because our local authority are just salary paying agencies. We can't run away from it.
What about our local traditional or political leadership? There are leaders in every community.
Let me drive this thing home.
Yeah.
Remember the Ken Saruwiwa, the Ogoni 9 and Ogoni 13?
Yeah.
What led to it? Greed. You find out that, unlike before, chieftaincy titles were barely contested. But today, why do you think people contest chieftaincy titles? Because kingship, stool, traditional stool, because of what is underneath. What led to the killing of Ogoni 9, that government retaliated with Ogoni 13? That all of these persons were supposed to be together. Some persons were collecting money, allegedly collecting money from the oil companies and not and thwarting the effort of the entire community. And so in the same vein today, what you have, both the civilians, both the leaders, both the youths, both the military, you have people, insiders, who are consistently fanning the embers of insecurity because of what they benefit from it, including politicians.
It's unfortunate.
So that's why, DEJI, growing up in Warri, I never knew what development levy was until the advent of militancy and this democracy. That youths will come, you are painting your house. Young boys will come and say you need to pay DEVE. And police will look the other way. Development levy. They call it DEVE in Delta State. DEVE, and these are non-state actors. They hold people to ransom to pay DEVE. And gradually, that's where, when you have community crises such as this, these are people during politics. They are employed to protect and escort ballot boxes. And how did they get arms? That's the first question we should be asking. And when you have a crisis such as this and everybody is culpable, everybody also needs to sit down to say, you know what, we're fed up. It has gotten to a stage where we can no longer control, because some of those young people that we felt we could use are ending up to use us. Local government is helpless. Even the state government in most cases is helpless, because you will need to call the IG. You need to call the chief of defense staff. You need to call the chief of army staff. Now we're talking about military, Nigerian army from headquarters, not even Delta State Army. Nigerian army from headquarters deploy to keep peace, man strategic installations. Now going into a community to say, you know what, let's settle this matter. This is a matter that both parties can sit down and resolve.
And that's
but because there is oil,
the local authority.
But because there is oil, you expect, you see some chiefs, because of the DEVE that will come in. So some persons will take side. Why, instead of employing the police to come, what do you call it, help resolve, why did they decide to call non-state actors?
You're right.
Also, if the police is up and doing, why bringing the military into a civil matter? So it's a breakdown of governance. It's a breakdown of rule. So we need to sit down as a country and reappraise our modus operandi and tell ourselves, how do we bring back Nigeria to where it was? Otherwise, we'll be handing over a country that is not just sitting on a keg of gunpowder, that is already blowing.
All right. Okay. I think we'll just have to leave it there. Unfortunately, we haven't got time. Let's just hope. And this is seriously hoping that the mastermind, those behind this savagery act, are brought to justice. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Nelson Akujimi, thank you very much for your time. And Libro Sushuma, thank you for coming, and as always, and thanks for everything.
My pleasure.
We'll take a short break now. We'll be right back. Stay with us, don't go away.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DEJI360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DEJI360, dissecting the issues.